Hi, I'm Lynne Richmond, Communications and Public Affairs Specialist at the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. I'm coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, PastForward 2019, the National Trust for Historic Preservation annual conference. And we are so happy to have Paul Edmondson, and honored, the President and CEO of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, with us today. Thank you, Paul, for coming and taking time out of the conference to speak with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
It has really been a wonderful conference so far, and I just wanted to ask you, what's new this year? What's different about this year's conference?
Well, let's see. This is my 33rd conference at the National Trust. It's actually our 73rd altogether. So each conference is going to be different, and having experienced so many of these conferences, this is actually our third in Denver. But Denver is a really wonderful place to have the conference because there's a tremendous preservation ethic here. Mm-hmm. Denver went through some terrible times with urban renewal and has really bounced back in so many different ways, but particularly by valuing its own historic resources. And they're great places to see here, and we've taken advantage of that in the conference programming. So there are a lot of field sessions that go out to the suburbs, or not the suburbs, the neighborhoods of Denver, and explore preservation techniques that have been used throughout this region, actually, not just Denver, but elsewhere in the region. So they're great venues for our larger events. Last night we had our opening reception at Union Station, which is a wonderful preservation success story. And we're having our closing session at Red Rocks, which is known to most people around the country as being just this wonderful, both natural and historic environment together. So it's got a little bit for everybody.
Yes, it's been so much fun and very interesting. I have noticed that there are quite a few sessions that are appealing to wider audiences. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Certainly. Well, the National Trust is really committed to diversity as one of our values, and that's been reflected in the Preservation Conference for some time, but particularly here in Denver. We have a program called the Diversity Scholars Program, where we've got, this year I think it's about 27 diversity, we call them diversity scholars. They're given full free registration and accommodations here, and this brings people that normally wouldn't be likely candidates for attending the National Trust Preservation Conference, and really increases the level of diversity here. And we also have something new this year is we've provided scholarships to graduate students, which has also provided an increase in the diversity of attendance, particularly younger attendees. Mm-hmm. We've got, I think, around 85 of those, graduate students largely, and that's wonderful. But our programming also, one of the preservation priorities for the National Trust is telling the full American story, and ensuring that everybody within the family of America really respects and appreciates and preserves the history of the full American story. And so that's reflected in the programming here as well, in all the sessions, particularly ones that are focused on the urban environment, which really is an area that we need to pay attention to, but we need to work closely with the individuals, neighborhood associations that are themselves working to preserve their own communities.
I attended the opening plenary session yesterday, and I found it just fascinating. And you gave a really great talk where you spoke about 3 different areas of focus going forward. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. There were really 3 themes that I tried to focus on, and reflecting my own career at the National Trust. I've been a lawyer at the National Trust for more than 3 decades, as I indicated. And in my work, there are 3 areas in particular that have been important to me and that I consider to be really key themes for the movement itself. And the first is preservation advocacy. It's something that we do, and we do well at the National Trust, and we work together with organizations around the country to protect and preserve historic sites of all different kinds. And the point I was trying to make yesterday in my talk was that if we're not out there advocating for these sites, people will not understand the value of these places. We really need to be out there actively advocating in order to ensure that we convince the public that they have to get involved and engaged. The second theme that I talked about was innovation, and preservation is often called the movement of no, and in some ways that may have some grain of truth to it, but there are largely things that we can do, importantly things that we can do to be innovative, to be creative in addressing preservation challenges. And I gave a couple of examples. The one in particular that is kind of heartfelt for me is a project that I've worked on many years in California to turn one of our own historic sites into something that's beyond simply a museum property, but engages the public in a lot of different ways. And in this case, by putting a bakery and cafe and an event center into the property, but in a way that connects with the history, so they're telling the story of the property as much as the museum that still is on the site. And the third theme that I really focused on is partnerships, which has really been essential to me in my work as a lawyer at the National Trust. And it's something that we need to do both for the statewide and local preservation organizations that are kind of the stalwart kind of backbone of the preservation movement, but also new partnerships. And we really need to look outside the field and to allied fields as well to ensure that they are partners with us in the work that we do.
Speaking of partnerships, I want to just thank you for the support from the National Trust, the Hope Crew, participating in our Touching History Preservation and Practice internship, 2 years now, and we're looking forward to year 3, adding a third school. Right now it's Morgan State University architecture students, Tuskegee University architecture students, and we're going to add Hampton University in Virginia this year. So thank you very much for all the support of that program.
Well, let me just say, speaking of partnerships, that we're really pleased to be partners with the Advisory Council and the Advisory Council Foundation in the work that they're doing all around the country, and both through the work in implementing Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, which is obviously something that we care about, but all the other programs that the Advisory Council does. It's a great partnership, so we're happy to be joined with you in that work.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Paul Edmondson, President and CEO of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I'm coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the PastForward conference. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.